morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Piotr, for your introduction. In this part of our forum, we would like to share with you the key highlights of our industrial report. But before we get into details, I would like to extend our gratitude to the leaders of 229 companies that took part in our survey. They represent almost 60% of total employment in our sector. Without your contribution, we wouldn't be able to produce our analysis and share valuable insights during this forum. So this year's edition is not only richer in the content. In addition to the results of our annual survey, we present more insights on sector's impact on economy, industry foresight, and the latest global trends. Next slide. Significance of the sector in our economy. The consistent growth during the last decade made our sector one of the most significant parts of the Polish economy. We estimate that the share of the sector in Polish GDP is in the range from 3 to 3.5%. The employment in the sector reached almost 340,000 jobs in 2020, which represents around 5% of the total employment by firms in Poland. In addition, we estimated the value of total export of knowledge-intensive business services to be $19.8 billion in 2019, with significant surplus, which started in 2008 and proved permanent. More details you can find in our report. We estimate that no less than 7% of this export's value can be attributed to our sector. And what is super interesting that since 2005, the average growth of the service export was higher than the average growth rate of the employment that we typically focused on in our annual reports. It proves an incredible competitiveness of the sector firms that could be directly linked to the superior performance and increased productivity. Next slide. Speaking of new investments, we actually see that since the beginning of 2019, 74 investments have been made in this sector. This created approximately 31,000 jobs and still represents significant 10% year-on-year growth. To better illustrate this dynamic, what we introduced a few years ago, we could say that the sector creates around 85 jobs a day. And if you look at the number of investors, it's getting really close to reach the 4 digits level. And we also observe that more and more companies are opening second and third location in Poland. That's why the average number of center is 50% higher than numbers of investors. Next slide. And our sector is truly global. Centers owned by the international business represent 71% of the sector and generate 82 of employment in the modern business services sector in Poland. What is quite impressive that 1/5 of the largest 500 companies in the world decided to centralize the operational and IT activities in Polish cities. And let's not forget about companies with Polish capital that operate in our sector. In terms of operating model and value they create, don't keep them behind the global giants. And of course, today, the talent is really rotating between the local and international brands, so we cannot really see that there is any difference in the quality of work and the quality of products that these centers really contribute to. Next slide. And on the competitive advantages, we could talk for more than half an hour, probably. But let me at least list or mention some of them that, in my opinion, are super relevant and are very critical for the continued growth. First of all, we still have the largest talent pool in Central and Eastern Europe, and it's growing every year. Highly developed office market, catching up every year to adapt to the sector needs, and the collaboration of all the sector stakeholders is absolutely amazing, and we as ABSL are super proud that we can orchestrate many of the initiatives. And infrastructure. Don't forget about the network of express roads, speed trains, and local flights that connect all the major cities in Poland in less than 3 hours. So I could talk for another hour probably, but with that said, I would like to give the floor to Tomasz Brodziński, my ABSL colleague and co-author of the report, as Tomasz will share probably a bunch of more interesting insights before we move to the next section of this digital forum. Tomasz, floor is yours.
Thank you, Wojciech. The lack of modern office space used to be perceived as a major disadvantage of Poland. It's not the case anymore due to consistent large-scale investments and close cooperation of developers, banks, and regional authorities with ABSL firms. Poland is now the largest office market in Central and Eastern Europe, offering 11 million square meters of high-quality office space. The working conditions in the region's offices are frequently considered as the top in the world. At the same time, 1.7 million square meters are currently being built. The developed office market is not only restricted to Warsaw. Poland now offers in addition 8 developed regional office markets located outside of the capital. Our strategic partner, JLL, stresses the new hot trends, increased availability of flex workspaces, as well as the growing popularity of sustainable office solutions under the theme of the green office. Next slide, please. The sector is located mainly in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities. However, we see that more than 50 cities are actually represented by sectors companies. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can see the level of LQ in 2020 along the horizontal axis and changes in LQ in comparison to 2016 on the vertical axis. An LQ, or the location quotient, shows the share of the modern business service sector in a given city's employment relative to the share nationwide. The LQ approach allows us to identify cities with distinctive specialization in modern business services. It is thus clear that in 2020, the sector plays the most prominent roles vis-à-vis other sectors of economic activity in Kraków and Wrocław, with LQs clearly above of 3. However, it's losing on significance. This could in turn be indicative of the role of the growth of the KIP sector in increasing the attractiveness of these locations to other sectors of economic activity. The sector plays an important role in Tri-City, the most attractive location in this year's subjective rating by sectors managers, Łódź, Poznań, Bydgoszcz, and Warszawa, and last but not least, Lublin, the city with the highest number of new entrants among Tier 3 cities. The sector gains on significance, however, only in the first 5 of them. Next slide. COVID-19 pandemic is testing the sector's adaptability and resilience to a greater extent. The incoming quantitative data and qualitative insights clearly show that the sector is much more resilient, flexible, and creative than we thought at the beginning of this year. The impossible became possible within several weeks. Global digital transformation has occurred. The majority of employees in the sector in Poland are now working from their homes with only limited or no actual impact on their productivity. The feared large-scale cuts in employment have not materialized. We already know that the sector in Poland will feel the effects of the crisis to a lesser extent than many other sectors of the national economy, such as tourism or the manufacturing industry, which is adversely affected by disruptions in the global value chains. It seems that the present economic slowdown is likely to lead to a relocation of the firms to Poland with the increasing importance of security concerns and proximity to headquarters. Thus, we expect an increase in onshoring and backshoring and a further increase in nearshoring of operation. Next slide. This is likely to lead to an actual increase in the size of the employment by the centers in Poland. We expect the employment to go up by around 7% this year in the optimistic scenario and to reach around 363,000 jobs. In the negative scenario, the employment will go up by around 3% and reach 348,000 jobs by the end of the first quarter 2021. We would like to emphasize once again that the sector is and will be growing in Poland. Next slide. As has already been stressed, Poland is one of the top locations for the sector globally. Most of the managers that took part in our annual survey confirmed that even with the global economic slowdown, Poland is likely to attract new investments, as well as centers reallocating from other regions of the world, in particular from the Western Europe. Next slide, please. We have already stressed the ongoing digital transformation of the sector. Approximately 60% of the firms interviewed have already introduced RPA or AI solutions. 1/3 of companies are likely to do that in the foreseeable future. In comparison to the prior annual reports, this year's edition analyzed programming languages and computer technologies utilized by centers. SQL, Java, and JavaScript proved to be the most free utilized programming languages, with Java the most desired programming language in the next year. As to the computer technologies, Power BI proves to be the winner, which is indicative of the increased role of data visualization techniques and interest in managerial dashboards. Overall, the centers focus more on data transformation, data visualization, the so-called big data, the data storage and transformation using modern cloud solutions. The trend towards intelligent process automation is continued, with more and more centers adopting robotic process automation or artificial intelligence solutions. The process, and it has to be stressed, is driven not only by cost optimization concerns, but to a large extent increased emphasis on providing high quality and faster solutions to sector clients. IPA is likely to lead to the emergence of the so-called hybrid workforce, which could in turn partially decrease the pressures from the depleting talent pool. The overall direction is, however, clear. Next slide. Even without the COVID-19 pandemic, the sector has been subject to ongoing and accelerating change of transformational magnitude. The sector in Poland has visibly changed and entered a new phase of development. It is now matured, which implies lower growth rates, potentially lower number of new entrants, and more organic growth with potential consolidation. To sustain its competitive edge over emerging competitors, the sector has to upgrade by moving to high value-added tasks and fulfilling more complex and demanding functions. We already see it in practice. The centers are gradually shifting from back office to middle office functions, which require higher skills, enhanced and large talent pool, fueled by more graduates coming from both Poland and neighboring countries. Upgrading without upskilling is impossible. A more advanced skill set is required, with the so-called skills of the future becoming a necessity, which is stressed in the report by our strategic partners, Randstad and Mercer. It is also clear to us that the further growth of the sector in Poland requires our centers, managers and workers to modify their mindset. To compete on the global technology frontier, we need to switch from being simple trend followers to actual global trendsetters. We have some cases of this already happening. However, it has to become the overall feature of the modern business service sector in Poland. As Steve Jobs once said, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. If we are successful in this endeavor, it could benefit not only the sector firms, but the whole economy of Poland through positive spillovers, contributing to economic growth, overall higher productivity levels, and further boost the international competitive position of Poland. Next slide, please. We would like to thank once again to all managers that devoted their precious time to completing this year's annual ABSL survey or participated in this first edition of Industry Foresight. In the end, I would like to thank the whole ABSL business intelligence team, and in particular the report's co-author Staszek Umiński, as well as Marcin Świeżyna for coordination of our works, and Dariusz Bazeli for industry insights, as well as our strategic partners, JLL, Mercer, and Randstad, for the great pleasure of cooperating with them on this year's edition of the ABSL report. Thank you very much for your attention.
Gentlemen, thank you for the information and such a remarkable analysis. Now, we would like to turn our viewers' attention to hear questions concerning ABSL Annual Report 2020. Let us see what questions we have received. And all viewers, please remember you can post your questions in the chat box available on our webpage. Paweł, may I ask you please to present the first question?
Thank you, Ania. Let's see who wrote to us and what can we read from the chat box. I guess the first question that we have goes to Wojciech. What are the main challenges ahead of the sector in Poland right now? Wojciech Popławski. Nic, kompletnie nic.
Obsługę.
Nic nie słyszymy.
Nie słyszymy, słuchajcie.
Okay, thank you, Wojciech. Great. I guess there is a number of questions related to the current situations. Let's see who else. Wojciech, it looks like you were on mute, so we missed your answer. Fortunately,
It is a live chat
people
box,
gave us a notice. Maybe you can unmute yourself and answer the question once again. That would help us.
we are having
We
some
may be
technical
having some
difficulties.
difficulties. Let's see if other participants of the chat and the team are with us. Let's look at the second question. Ania, maybe you want to read it.
The second question we received from the audience is the role of foreign capital versus Poland's capital in the sector. So I would like to direct this question to Tomek.
Can you hear Tomek or not?
No.
Yes, yes.
You can? I cannot.
Please, not Tomek.
We can't hear Tomek either. Staszek, I guess.
Yeah.
If you want to answer the question, that may be a
Yeah,
little
no
easier.
problem.
Sorry, guys. Okay, Tomek,
Apologies.
Staszek.
So undoubtedly, we must admit that the sector is dominated by foreign direct investments. So the capital, knowledge, technology, and other kind of assets that were transferred to Poland by foreign direct investors. So at the end of the first quarter of 2020, foreign investors accounted for 82% of the total jobs in the sector, managing about 65% of the total number of business services centers operating in Poland. We can also see that the average employment level in foreign-owned centers in Poland is higher than in Polish-owned centers. So if for foreign-owned centers is 285 people working in an average center, in Polish centers is 100 so it's lower. I can say that these by foreign direct investors, it's not as probably we have to talk about heterogeneity of this sector. So we have different enterprises, and I think it has to be underlined that it's not only capital, I mean money brought by foreign direct investors to Poland. It's also the know-how, something that we call tacit knowledge. It's knowledge codified within business organizations, which is very hardly transferable and which is very important for the operations of this sector in Poland.
Staszek, thank you very much. These were very specific information. I hope everyone can find more details in the publication. Let's go into the next question that we have received. There was a slide, digital transformation, so I guess that question concerns this one. The main technological drivers of change within a center. You mentioned a couple of those. If you could try to go into details. Let's see if gentlemen Staszek or Tomek, who would like to answer that because you have the data?
Is my colleague Tomek available at the call?
Tomek, can we hear you? I think Tomek is still on mute. Sorry about that. Staszek, it looks like you will have to take that part as well.
Yeah, okay, so I can say that, first of all, the sophistication of the services provided by the centers in Poland is growing. So that's the challenge, number one. We could say the importance of the data management is so it's so important with the technologies that allow data to be collected, effectively processed and stored. We also see the challenge of the growing importance of cloud technologies, and there's a visible trend and challenge towards implementing intelligent process automation solutions, include both robotization and artificial intelligence. Also, the data visualization is becoming increasingly popular, which would enable managers and to draw some vital conclusions, and it also data to tell a story. That's some kind of message that we have, that data is telling the story. So managing the data is one of the most important things. I think that's the most important thing. Maybe my colleagues would like to add something.
We try to reconnect. We try to reconnect with Tomek, but it may be difficult. Let's maybe move on to the next question, and we'll see if we can get back Tomek on track. Great. Yeah, we can hear, I think, Tomek from the phone. Okay, so Tomek, if you want to add anything.
Okay.
Can
Sure.
you hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you
we
now.
can hear
It's
you.
good now.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, so the digitalization has occurred. This is, I think that Staszek hasn't stressed it. I mean, so as I said during the presentation, the impossible became possible within a very short period of time. So actually, ABSL conducted a separate survey which showed that most of centers, like 85% of centers, actually transformed to digital, and so went on home office within 5 days from the moment the pandemic actually started in Poland. What is also interesting is that this year's version of the report, we actually were able to conduct gather data on the utilization of different technologies in programming languages. And as it was stressed, it was quite clear, Java, JavaScript are the most popular languages. As to technologies, we should really see Power BI and Tableau, so more or less advanced data documentation. The centers are also using the cloud solutions from different sources. Shows they're using cloud solutions and going to data. And for instance, UiPath is becoming one of the trends in the sector, which actually shows that RPA process is actually ongoing. So we have robotic process automation. And what is also important is that, well, 60% of companies actually say that they already introduced some IP solutions, and the next 30, so 1/3 actually says they are going to likely to do it in the future. So digitalization and this kind of digital transformation is happening quite fast and is likely to continue and speed up in future.
Great.
Great. Well, maybe we are running out of time, but we have the last question saved for the audience. You talked a lot about digitalization and enabling the sector by that. And audience is wondering, because the report says a lot about sector's maturity. And what does it mean? Is it only about digitalization, IT enablers, or are there any factors that rise the acceleration of sector's maturity? And the question could go to Wojciech, if that's possible.
Sure. Let's see if Wojciech can hear us and we can hear him. No.
Still.
Sorry about
right.
that. So,
apologies. So
maybe if any of you, Tomek or Staszek, can answer the data-proven maturity of the sector.
I will do it together, no problem.
Sure.
Tomek, you can start. Okay.
Okay, so what do you mean by maturity? As you see, the growth in employment in sector is already slowing down. The number of investments next year went down, but more or less we say that this is due to the global considerations. Obviously, we had a global slowdown this year. Unfortunately, we have the pandemic. We still see that the sector, I mean, as you probably have seen, that the sector is likely to grow in terms of employment by 7% in the optimistic scenario to 3% in the pessimistic scenario. Still, it is growing. More or less what we expect. We expect the new entrants actually to increase. We also see the potential in consolidation. So the companies, the economies of scale and scope. That's why we say it's more mature. On the other hand, we have to stress that clearly the sector is leading. So more or less the center providing and generally speaking, what we stress there is that a clear increase in the middle office functions. So generally speaking, the number of functions which are of the back office type is actually slowly decreasing. A number of middle office functions is actually increasing, which shows you the increase in complexity, shows you the increase in the value added, and also is associated with the so-called upskilling. So more or less, this shows that the competitive edge of the sector is not based on price considerations anymore. More or less, the competitive edge of the sector to a large extent depends on geographical proximity, but also higher value added and the talent pool, which is actually based in Poland. And those are the considerations which are key and are showing this maturity of the sector in Poland. So, Staszek, if you would like to add something more.
Maybe we can switch to another question because it's very much related to what you were saying. Actually, we have 3 of those questions. The first one is the further employment increase in forecast for the next year. Why are you so optimistic about it? And then the second one, how will the automation influence the employment in the sector? So the question is, are we really optimistic saying it will be a growth of 7%? Is it just a number, or is it the increase in the complexity that is more important? The quality, not the quantity, or quantity, not the quality. What would you say?
Okay.
Tomek?
Sorry, I was not. Oh, okay. Paweł, I was sorry, I was not. Okay.
So as to the first, why are we so optimistic, more or less, in terms of employment? Actually, we see that we this year, from the beginning of this year, we have already 15 investments recorded. So the companies are actually coming. Secondly, what we see, I mean, globally, is that obviously we have a slowdown. However, both the ABSL managers and actually qualitative insights from around the world show that actually the sector is taking the security of operations to a large extent. And this element is actually on the increase. And so more or less the 2 elements are going to appear. So we'll see increase in the so-called onshoring and backshoring of processes back to Europe, with potentially reallocating to the region and specifically to Poland. Secondly, the new investments actually stemming from Western Europe are actually to be of the nearshoring type, so locating close by. So we actually expect that, especially Asian markets could actually lose on COVID-19 pandemic, and Poland, together with the Central Europe, is actually the gainer. And secondly, if you look into the more deeply into the structure of centers, it's not that all sectors are negatively affected by COVID pandemic. So, for instance, centers providing services to airlines or air industry more or less could be negatively affected. They are more or less switching on to other clients. However, other sectors such as IT are actually gainers on COVID, but because the resilience is actually to a large extent based on IT and IT technologies, and thus the IT part of the business is actually going to increase. That's why we say that employment is likely to increase.
Great.
Wojtek, Tomek, Staszek, we still see a lot of questions coming, but no more time, unfortunately, to answer them. Despite the technical issues that we have experienced, we still can make or ask questions during the matchmaking break at 10:45. So please do not hesitate to approach them live and ask the questions yourself.
Now we would like to take the opportunity and thank our strategic partners. They have been supporting us all the time in the easy and difficult moments. So we would like to ask Piotr Dziwok, ABSL President, to handle statuettes of recognition for the strategic partners.
ABSL have been successfully supporting the development of the modern business service sector in Poland for more than 10 years now, also contributing heavily to the Polish investment climate. Such a profound performance would not have been possible without invaluable support and input from our long-term strategic partners. Recently, they have again proved their great commitment, instantly providing their expertise and support to the ABSL community in terms of reshaping their business continuity through the new normal solutions of an economy under lockdown. Let me then express my utmost appreciation of their contribution and outstanding cooperation by handing over the ABSL Strategic Partner recognition statuettes. Ladies and gentlemen, this year they are GLL and Randstad Sourceright. On behalf of GLL, the award will be accepted by Anna Bartoszewicz-Wnuk, and on behalf of Randstad Sourceright, Rebecca Henderson.
Bartoszewicz-Wnuk. I'm head of workplace advisory and a member of the management board of JLL in Poland. Really proud to receive this statuette from ABSL today, which is the confirmation of our continuous commitment to the growth of the Polish economy and the sector in particular. Thank you.
At Randstad Sourceright, we are very proud to have been a strategic partner to ABSL for the last 5 years. Together, we've been supporting the growth and development of the business services sector in Poland. We have collaborated in initiatives like the ABSL Annual Report and the EMEA Business Services Landscape Report, where we provided our HR industry expertise and insights to help bring Poland in the front of new investors and companies looking to grow their businesses. Our history together has spanned knowledge sharing and best practices via our publications, researches, articles, and white papers, hosting and participating in webinars, roundtables, discussions, and debates, and of course, also participating in the global ABSL conference with live presentations where we brought some of our clients like UCB and Philips to share their experiences. I myself had the pleasure of being with you at last year's ABSL conference, and I had a tremendous time. It was my first visit to Poland, and not only did I participate on one of the live debates on stage, I also got to do a presentation talking about youth getting back to work. And my favorite memory of Poland is looking out of my hotel room and seeing the cranes and all of the growth, which clearly was in support of much employment in Poland. So I look forward to many more years of great collaboration, and I thank you.